There's a popular idea online that you can use loans to cheat the system, that instead of working for money, you can make the bank work for you. It sounds powerful, almost like a shortcut. Borrow money, buy assets, let those assets grow, and somehow you come out ahead. And if you look at wealthy people, it even seems true. They use debt, they buy assets, they grow their wealth. So the idea feels convincing. But here's the question. Is debt really a shortcut to wealth? Or is something important being misunderstood? Because what looks like a smart strategy on the surface can become very risky underneath. At first, the logic seems simple. If you have $100,000, you could invest that amount. Or you could use it as a down payment, borrow more money, and control a much larger asset. Instead of owning $100,000, you now control $500,000. If that asset grows, you benefit from the full value, not just what you put in. And that's the key idea behind leverage, using borrowed money to amplify your returns. Now add another layer. If that asset produces income, like rent from a property, that income can help pay the loan. So it starts to feel like a powerful system. You control a large asset, the asset grows, and someone else helps pay for it. Which leads to the conclusion, why not just use debt to get rich faster? But this is where the misunderstanding begins. Because the part that gets emphasized is the upside, and the part that gets ignored is everything else. Let's imagine two people, Daniel and Maria. Both hear the same idea. Use loans to build wealth. Daniel gets excited. He sees the potential. He wants to move fast. He takes a loan, buys an investment property, and expects the rent to cover the mortgage. Maria hears the same idea, but she reacts differently. She slows down. She looks at the numbers. She asks, what happens if things don't go perfectly? She also uses a loan, but only after she builds a system around it. At the beginning, they look similar. Both are using debt, both are investing, both are trying to grow their money. But what happens next is where the difference appears. Let's break down what's actually happening, because this is where clarity matters. When you take a loan, you are committing to fixed payments every single month. It doesn't matter what happens, the payment is still due. Now imagine Daniel's situation. He buys a property and expects the rent to cover everything. At first, it works. The tenant pays rent, the mortgage gets covered, everything feels smooth. But real life is not perfectly stable. Sometimes the tenant moves out. The property needs repairs. Unexpected costs appear. Now the rental income stops or decreases. But the loan doesn't stop. The bank still expects payment, on time, every month. So Daniel now has pressure, because his system depends on things going right. Now look at Maria. She assumes things will go wrong sometimes. So before taking the loan, she prepares. She builds a buffer. She calculates worst-case scenarios. She makes sure, even if the rent stops, she can still manage the payments. So her system is different. Not because she avoided debt, but because she designed around it. Here's the key idea. Debt does not create wealth. It amplifies outcomes. If the investment performs well, debt makes the return bigger. But if the investment struggles, debt makes the loss worse. So debt is not a shortcut. It's a multiplier. And a multiplier works both ways. This is the part most people don't fully understand, because the upside is exciting, but the downside is often invisible until it happens. Now let's go deeper, because this is where many people get caught. Let's say Daniel's property brings in rent, $2,000 per month, and his loan payment is also around $2,000. On paper, that looks perfect. But then add real-world costs, maintenance, insurance, taxes, vacancies. Now maybe his total cost is closer to $2,400. That means every month he's losing $400, even though it looked like a break-even investment. This doesn't mean real estate is bad. It just means the numbers need to be understood clearly, because income is not the same as profit. And here's something even more important. The wealthy don't use debt to take risks. They use debt to manage risk. That sounds counterintuitive, but think about it. They don't borrow at their limit, depend on one outcome, assume perfect conditions. Instead, they build buffers, diversify, plan for worst-case scenarios. So even when things go wrong, their system survives, because survival is what allows long-term growth, not speed. This is where perception becomes misleading. When people hear, "use debt to get rich," they imagine easy growth. They imagine passive income, rising asset values, fast wealth. They don't imagine responsibility, pressure, uncertainty. Because success stories are visible. People talk about the wins, the properties, the profits. But they rarely talk about the stress, the risk, the mistakes. So it creates an illusion that this strategy is simpler and safer than it actually is. So what's the real rule behind using debt? Debt is not the advantage. The advantage is having a system that works even when things don't go perfectly. Because in the real world, things rarely go perfectly. And if your system depends on everything going right, it will eventually break. But if your system is built to handle uncertainty, it becomes resilient. And that's what allows wealth to grow over time. Using loans can build wealth. That part is true. Many wealthy people use debt. They use it to acquire assets, to grow faster, to expand opportunities. But they are not cheating the system. They are working within it. And more importantly, they understand it. Because the difference is not in the tool, it's in how the tool is used. The people who succeed with debt are not the ones who borrow the most. They are the ones who understand the risks, build around uncertainty, and stay consistent over time. Because in the end, wealth is not built by shortcuts. It's built by systems that can survive and keep working even when things don't go perfectly.